I'm Jordan. I'm here. I'm a rabbi in Toronto. Um, my religious tradition is Jewish, especially my congregation is in the Reform Jewish movement. Um, I feel like I have to begin this with a blessing that our tradition teaches us we should say when in the presence of great scholars, people who contribute a lot of wisdom. There's certainly a lot of wisdom on this call, and I think it's a great place to start. So I'm going to recite it. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam shenatan mechochmato levasar vadam, which means, blessed are you, eternal, our God, ruler of the universe, who has given some of God's own wisdom to flesh and blood. What does that mean? I think that what it means for me is that even in the pursuit of secular topics, the pursuit of scientific understanding, pursuit of awe at the natural world, things that have nothing to do with Torah, with religious values and learning, that there is some of divine wisdom in all of that. And I think that, like Reverend Van Sloten, John, finds wonder in the natural world and not only in the idea of something supernatural, I also am someone who is drawn to my religious tradition because, and not in spite of, the natural world, not in spite of the scientific community's contributions to our understanding of that. Although I'm not a scientist, and I find myself very frequently in this group feeling like I am way in over my head. So, with that, I want to say that I think that for me, what I want to talk about is really the places where religion and science have commonality, both for good and for bad. I think that one of the things that drives all of our learning, all of that spark of chokhmato, of God's wisdom that's in us when we do this kind of learning, is a pursuit of a theory of everything, the pursuit of a way of explaining everything that we experience in one way. And I think that this is often how people perceive what religion is really about. I think that people think that religious traditions are about giving us answers so we don't have to keep thinking about things. And I think that there is some truth to that conception. I think that sometimes religion is about giving answers to bolster authority that that sort of give us an explanation for everything. But I think that that tendency exists in other realms of human knowledge and experience too. I think that we have seen lately a lot of politics boils down to I have a theory of everything, a theory of how we got to this point and what it all means. And when that is challenged, it leads to not good places. It leads us to violence, to dismissing other people, to really rejecting reality in some ways. And I think that that's really unfortunate. And in science too, I think that there is this, I mean, we know that I got this term from a scientific idea, the idea that there's a theory of everything. I'm not talking about the cosmological understanding of a theory of everything. I'm talking about the idea that everything can be known and that therefore, and everything can be explained, and that if we could only just find the right explanation that fit everything, then we wouldn't have to continue to have these arguments, continue to have questions. And I think that in science, like in religion and politics, it's possible that that search for a theory of everything is about bolstering a certain kind of authority and is not so helpful. And the reason that I say that is because, like some of the other people who've been on this call, like Briana and Amanda and Mark, we've seen that people are able to process and hold two different ideas at once more when we see openness and warmth and care than we see this sort of appeal to authority, to the idea that I know what's really true, and if you disagree with me, it's because there's something wrong with you. Either you don't know enough, you're not smart enough, you're brainwashed. I think that that's a real tendency that we have in lots of realms in human life. But I think that with regard to this conversation of religion and science, it's one of the parts that's least productive. I am a rabbi in a tradition where most people don't have a problem with science, certainly not with evolution and Darwin. And at the same time, we continue to teach the Torah, the version of our story of origin, which many here have referred to as young Earth creationism. I don't think that the Jewish take on the Torah is exactly the same as young Earth creationism, but we continue to tell that story every year. We continue to learn about our world through the lens of that story, and it's something that I think is interesting to me, is that it doesn't seem to be, for most Jewish people, a problem that on the one hand we hold this story up as authoritative, as representative of our tradition and our Jewishness, our outlook on the world, and on the other hand, most Jews believe in science and believe in evolution and Darwin, and it's really not a problem. Where we do run into problems in my community is the understanding of whether a God can exist who is good and powerful and meaningful in any way, contiguously with the suffering that we see in our world. And particularly, this problem has existed since the middle part of the last century, when all of our Jewish communities were traumatized by a catastrophe that happened in Europe. There is a traditional Jewish response to that question, which, if we look at biblical texts and at the rabbinic tradition, says if something bad is happening to us, the Jews, it's our own fault. We have sinned and we've gone astray and we've been exiled from our land, and that's the way we explain that. And I think that is an unhelpful theory of everything, which is totally challenged by the traumas of the last century. And so when I think that we approach these kinds of questions in science and religion, both, it's more useful to focus on not what's the answer, what's the explanation that I need in order to bolster the authority of my tradition or of my community or of my own scholarship. I think that sometimes it's about understanding and helping people to live with questions. A question can be a challenge to our authority, but it's also a door to opening up not just a new understanding, but a way of understanding everything in a way that a theory of everything sounds great, but maybe doesn't help us get there. I'm being a little bit rambly, and I'm sorry about that. The point that I want to leave us on is the idea of what are the questions that we should be asking of each other, and what are the questions that we should be helping each other sit with, rather than trying to knee-jerk give a response to. That, to me, is what my tradition is about. It's why we ask 4 questions when we begin our Passover Seder every year. At the beginning, we don't start telling a story. We sit and we ask questions about why we're still here, why we're still telling the story, why this matters to us at all. And I think that is the right impulse, not to start with trying to explain or give answers, but to sit with the big questions. So once again, I want to say thank you for the opportunity to be on this panel, to hear so much wisdom from the people who are here, and to ask that you guys who are in the audience, people who are in the audience, I should say, think of what are the questions that we should all be sitting with together.